The high-altitude sun was still lifting mist from the Gallatin River when Marnie Voss heard the knock. She was scraping mud off a string of rental saddles outside the tack barn, sniffing split leather and pine sap while the wranglers saddled up the city guests for their morning ride. "1 minute," she called, not looking up. The knock came again, more insistent. She set the saddle on its horn, wiped her gloves on her jeans, and opened the half door. On the other side stood Wade Sutter, foreman of the neighboring Stillwater construction crew, the men hired by Blue Aspen Resorts to prepare survey stakes on the Voss family's land. His clipboard cast an angular shadow across the barn floor. "You received our certified letter?" "I read every word," Marnie said. Though she'd only skimmed the legal jargon, she knew its gist. Blue Aspen wanted the North Pasture, wanted in fact the entire valley, for a private airport, a conference center, and an 800-room hotel. As leverage, they cited overdue property taxes. Her late father had let lapse before the stroke claimed him. Wade tipped his hard hat, the gesture polite but fixed. "Surveyors'll be by on Friday, just marking the grade." "No harm to your guests." "Everything's harm when you treat the land like butchered beef," Marnie muttered. She watched him note something on his clipboard and stride away, spurs clinking against perforated steel boots like counterfeit cowboy gear. The sound faded into the soybean growl of a diesel engine idling at the gate. When he disappeared behind the cottonwoods, she turned, grabbed the neck saddle on the rack, and 1,880s McClellan relic brought in as decoration for the ranch lodge, and plopped it on the bench. The front rigging leather crumbled under her thumbs, and a seam burst, ejecting a tuft of horsehair and a wadded object wrapped in oilcloth. Curiosity trumped her chores. She peeled the gauzy layers. Inside lay 3 folded envelopes, each sealed with brittle red wax stamped with an emblem, a spur across a crescent moon. Handwriting, elegant yet hurried, spelled the salutation, "Dearest H." Below, the inked lines shot diagonally like cattle trails across coulee slopes. Marnie scanned the first letter. The sentences were half riddles, half moon-eyed confessions. Symbols replaced certain words. Asterisms, square knots, tiny sketch marks of brands and bullets. The date read 4 July 1884. She flipped to the next. Same wax, different date. A phrase caught her breath. "I dare the whole territory to find us, yet will leave them a prize only 2 hearts can claim." The writer signed off with a flourish. "Yours in the shadows, J.J." She knew the ranch's archive of local law well enough to guess the players. Helena newspapers in the 1,880s ran columns about Jesse Red Jack Calder, an outlaw who robbed shipment coaches between Virginia City and Fort Benton, disappearing each winter into the mountains above the Gallatin. Rumor pegged him harboring a sweetheart named Lost to Time, who smuggled messages in the supply caravans. The loot, folks said, was never found. The third envelope offered the biggest hook. Scattered among the metaphors were coordinates, but not in numbers. Instead, the letter read, "Where the grey mare drinks beneath Lone Antler, 7 paces west of the sentinel who carries thunder inside." She read it twice, goosebumps crawling beneath her plaid shirt. A treasure clue, hidden in a saddle on her ranch. And suddenly Blue Aspen's bulldozers weren't the only ticking clock. She stuffed the letters in her back pocket and grabbed the saddle's cantle. Beneath a second split seam, her fingers brushed something cool and metallic, a palm-sized spur rowel. She pried it loose, the same crescent moon insignia matching the wax stamps, and clutched it like fate had placed a 6-gun in her hand. The morning ride departed without her. She told head wrangler Juanita to cover for her and jogged toward the office cabin, barn cats skittering from her boots. If she could document tangible history, something weighty enough to trigger archaeological review, maybe the state would stall Blue Aspen's construction permit. On her desk perched a cracked, dusty computer, reliable as a mule. She toggled it on, stuffed the letters under a blotter, and dialed the Bozeman Public Library's local history extension. Reference desk, came a voice. Nora, it's Marnie Voss. I need your decoding brain. You still owing me for the time I babysat your goats. I'll throw in a season pass for trail rides, Marnie bargained. And my grandmother's huckleberry jam. That earned a chortle. What's the puzzle? 3 letters from 1884 by someone signing himself J. I think he's read Jack. They're in cipher. I need them photographed and transcribed, and I need to know what the law says about historical sites on private land under imminent development. Nora exhaled. Bring coffee. On my way. Marnie slung the letters, the spur, and her notebook into a saddlebag, hopped her elderly F-100 truck, and drove the 50 miles into town with summer dust streaming behind. Bozeman's main street bustled with tourists buying Keep Bozeman Brooksy T-shirts and kombucha. Blue Aspen's glossy billboard overlooking the interstate featured a digital rendering of glass lodges and gondolas, Stillwater Resort Montana elevated. A slow burn lit Marnie's gut. At the library, Nora spread the letters beneath a magnifying lamp. She was a stout woman who wore silver concho earrings and could recite the entire Lewis and Clark itinerary in iambic pentameter if bribed with espresso. Classic homophonic substitution, she murmured, scribbling equivalents onto a pad. But see here, the author swaps not just letters but common words with pictographs. The brands probably mean ranch name. This cross-trident symbol appears whenever he mentions, perhaps, your dearest H. Look, here he says, meet where antler arcs above the clearing. Could be a topographical feature. They spent hours cross-referencing 1,880 land plats. By 3:00 p.m. the code cracked. Hide the chest at Thunder Falls under the petrified cottonwood root. Cover with stones that ring like coins when struck. Bury the mare's bridle to point the course if distance creeps away. Thunder Falls lay within the Voss Ranch boundaries, a lesser-known cascade on a tributary above Cougar Gulch. Marnie had picnicked there as a kid, tossing sticks for her blue heeler. She recalled a tree trunk contorted like a lightning bolt. Locals called it the Thunder Tree. If that loot's there, we can file a cultural heritage claim, Nora said, excitement twinkling behind bifocals. Developers hate paperwork. Will you come? Wild horses, she grinned. Or, in this case, high. End condos couldn't stop me. They arranged to meet at dawn before the next surveyor's sweep. Marnie left the library, new resolve fueling her stride. On her windshield she found a folded note. Keep off the North Ridge if you value your ranch. A friend. The stationery bore the Stillwater Construction logo. That night, the wind hauled clouds across a 3/4 moon. Pacing her cabin, Marnie reread the letters. Jay's language pulsed with desperate devotion and defiance. Like he knew Pinkerton men were closing in, he promised, they'd vanish to Canada once the trove was safely promised to posterity. He sealed one page with smudged fingerprints, red clay, forming a crescent. She wondered how his story ended. Did they escape? Did the law catch him? At dawn, she met Nora beside the tack barn. Nora brought a pickaxe, gloves, and a 35mm camera. Marnie toted thermoses of coffee and the letters sealed in a plastic sleeve. They saddled 2 sure-footed geldings, Reno and Biscuit, and rode up Cougar Gulch beneath cliffs striated like cinnamon rolls. Dew-jeweled sagebrush, blue flax fluttered like confetti among rocks. They reached Thunder Falls by 9. The water plunged 20 feet into a basin cupped by black basalt. Mist cooled their faces. 5 yards upslope sprawled the Thunder Tree, its trunk split and fossilized tan as bone. Marnie's heart hammered. If the stash existed, it would be right here, yards from where she'd played tag with her little brother years before. They knelt, scanning the ground. Smooth stones ringed the trunk. Deliberate? Marnie tapped one with her pick handle. The rock answered with a hollow thunk like distant bells. She and Nora locked eyes. They set to work, leveraging stones aside, scraping soil. Minutes stretched. At 8 inches, Nora's trowel hit wood. They cleared earth to reveal a box 2 feet long, formed from ironwood planks, bound by leather straps hardened to stone. A corroded brass padlock hung off the latch, shaped like a crescent moon embracing a spur. Marnie's hands trembled. She raised the pick to shear the lock when a voice barked, "Stop!" She spun. Wade Sutter and 2 surveyors emerged from the brush, dressed not in hard hats but in dusty canvas like they'd been tailing her. Wade's hand rested on a holstered sidearm, a far cry from OSHA standards. "That box belongs to Blue Aspen," he said. "We purchased the mineral and archaeological rights when we acquired the options last year." "You haven't bought anything," Marnie snapped. "We're digging on the Voss deed." He smirked. "An overdue tax lien turns your deed to tissue, but I prefer simple trades. Hand it over now, we forget you trespass on an active survey site." Nora stepped forward. "This is a potential cultural resource. State Code 223424 requires immediate notification of the Historical Preservation Office." Wade's smirk slipped. He reached for the box. Marnie swung the pick, planting its tip into the ground between his boots. Soil spattered his jeans. "Back off," she said. Her voice surprised her, steady as barbed wire. Wade glared, but his surveyors shuffled, unsure. In the distance, the putter of an approaching ATV droned. Juanita's bright orange ranch cap appeared between pines. Behind her rode 2 deputy sheriffs from Gallatin County, sirens mercifully absent but lights flashing blue. Juanita lifted a walkie and waved. "Figured you could use backup." One deputy dismounted and read Wade his rights for brandishing a firearm privately without just cause. The other took Marnie's statement. Wade's protests faded under the static of handcuffs clicking. Breathing at last, Marnie knelt and slid the pick's chisel through the lock. It popped with a groan. She lifted the lid. Sunlight filled the hollow, gilding objects wrapped in velvet, a trove of silver dollars stamped 1879, a navy blue pouch of uncut sapphires loaded stones from the Yogo mine. Rare even now, 2 Colt .45 revolvers engraved with swirling scrollwork, and beneath them, a bound diary. The first page bore looping script. "Property of Henrietta Hale Coulter. H. the secret letter recipient." Nora gasped. This could rewrite territorial history. She removed the diary carefully, photographing pages. Inside, Henrietta's words described her partnership with Red Jack. She funneled stolen railroad profits to miners who'd lost limbs, to widows, to Chinese laborers barred from wages. The stash was meant for a future where law would favor compassion. Henrietta wrote, "When the land is no longer wild, let this silver keep it free." Marnie swallowed, her eyes stinging. She wasn't just hiding loot, she was protecting the valley. The deputies helped transport the box, escorted by juiced-up wranglers, now giddy with folklore come alive. Back at the ranch lodge, reporters already congregated, tipped off by Nora's librarian network, which responded to whispers like prairie dogs to hawks. Over the next week, the Montana Historical Preservation Office fast-tracked an emergency designation. Henrietta Hale Coulter Outlaw Refuge and Cultural Site. Archaeologists pitched white tents, mapping every inch around Thunder Falls, while drones photographed strata of soil. Blue Aspen's development permit slammed into a brick wall of state regulations. Public outcry rose. People liked a romantic outlaw more than a luxury heliport. Investors quietly receded. Still water construction trucks rolled away, leaving only tire imprints in the dust. Yet Marnie couldn't rest. Questions gnawed. Where did Red Jack finally go? Did he reach Canada? Did he reunite with Henrietta beyond the crossed border? The answer came buried in the diary's final entry. My dearest Jay, tomorrow I join you at Fort Benton. The riverboat leaves at dawn. Our dreams pass to the land itself. May it cradle kindred souls, long after our bones meet prairie grass. Yours forever. H. Fort Benton Archives revealed a marriage certificate. Jessie Coulter wed Henrietta Hale on July 21, 1885. 2 months later they sailed for Victoria, British Columbia. There the trail dimmed. Marnie fancied them dying old and happy, hidden in another valley where no railroad or resort could find them. With the site protected, the Voss family qualified for federal heritage grants. Tax lien vanished under public benefit exemptions. The Dude Ranch rebranded as Thunder Tree Heritage Ranch, offering horse tours to the dig, frontier cooking classes, and weekend cipher workshops taught by Nora, who wore the crescent spur brooch pinned above her heart. One September afternoon, tourists scattered across the valley like bright sprinkles on cake. Marnie saddled Biscuit and rode to Thunder Falls, alone save for ravens cawing over Rimrock. Archaeologists had gone for the season, leaving stakes marking grid coordinates like slender sentinels. She climbed atop the Thunder Tree route and opened Henrietta's diary, letting pages flutter. Wind riffled pencil sketches of mountain lions, campfires, the curve of Jessie's jaw. She penciled a note of her own on the blank final leaf. Dear H and J, your gift endures. The water still runs clean. The cottonwoods still hum with bees. Children ride ponies where you once rode from the law. Thank you for teaching me that rebellion twines with love, and that guarding a place is worth every risk. She closed the book, slipped it back into its archival sleeve, and gazed toward Cougar Gulch. Sunlight slanted across sage flats where blue aspen had envisioned parking lots. Now lupin and balsam root waved freely. In the distance, surveyor stakes lay forgotten, wood bleaching under alpine light. Biscuit snorted. Marnie patted his neck and whispered, "We kept it wild, boy." She pictured Wade's astonished face as deputies hauled him away, pictured the sapphire pouch now funding the ranch's education programs. A future, she realized, shaped not by bulldozers, but by stories. Hoofbeats echoed in the trees, the evening trail ride returning. Laughter filtered through branches. Marnie lifted the crescent spur brooch she now wore on her hatband. She thought of coded letters folded in the museum case, inviting visitors to solve them anew. Mystery, after all, kept the heart young. She swung into the saddle, heels nudging Biscuit toward the ridge. The valley opened before her like an unbroken promise. River braiding silver ribbons, hayfields blushing gold, mountains wreathed in purple dusk. History wasn't just past, it was soil beneath her boots. Names in her breath, a vow she held with both hands. As she rode, the wind carried a faint sound, stones ringing like coins beneath a waterfall. Or maybe it was laughter from two lovers galloping forever across the high country, free,